Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Pakhuis, for having me here tonight, and for everybody being here. A little bit nervous, so I gotta like say that out loud, so you can carry me a little bit. Yes, my name is Richard Koek, and photographer. I'm actually half American and half Dutch when you look at my passports, but raised by an Argentinian mother. We'll get to that later, and I'm very curious what my behavior will be in the very near future at this moment. Yeah, my name is Richard Koek, and let's see if the clicker works. And I published the book New York, New York. I moved to New York actually 18 years ago, and recently relocated again in Amsterdam as well, for certain reasons. So let's go back one more. I'm going too fast. Can we go back? That's me, the book, New York. I'm going to tonight talk a little bit, of course, about my book that has been published in April by Tara Lanou. I got an assignment to make a book about New York City. But also I'd like to take you a little bit on the road of storytelling. What is my exclusive story? And everybody has an exclusive story. Everybody has his own story, how he's been raised, and whatever you carry, all the issues, all the buttons that your parents made. We all know that. And basically, I've noticed while I was showing my book to others, how this book is just a wonderful collection of connection points where people connect through their own stories. And sometimes I hear stories when they view my work that I'm like, whatever, I've never heard of that. And that's just the wonderful thing about my visual work and this book. But, you know, every visual exposure in general is just, yeah, it can be a connection point. And I've realized that disconnecting is what we always do. When you like walk into a sports bar, you immediately try to find out where are your allies in sports, you know, who are the sporters that you know. And it's the same with my pictures of New York. People recognize themselves and see things in it. And so that's how we try to find common grounds and allies and to create some safety. And it's all about love in the end. You know, you do that with your partner as well. Create allies, of course. So it started a couple of years ago when Feiko Koster asked me. I was already photographing the city, basically to get away from the assignments that I had to do stuff. I wanted to be free and photograph from what I feel without a client above me telling me what to do. And Feiko Koster, then curator of Photo Festival Naden, he asked me to submit an art piece, and I was really grateful that he had this crazy idea of like printing a 40-meter long photo that I created, which is basically a complete city block that I like stitched together in Photoshop. Really simple, but it turned out to be like a wonderful thing that you can walk next to a picture and actually like feel that you're walking in the city. It started basically, when you see there, it started with this portrait of two people smoking a cigarette outside of the Standard Hotel, and that's when I started. I kept on photographing, and this was a couple of years ago in Naden. Yeah, and that's when it started. That I started to realize that people really enjoy the pictures that I make of New York City, and for me it was just like, you know, I still feel sometimes it's very easy for me to take these photographs because they're so effortless, you know, how easy I can make them simply because, yeah, I love this city a lot. But let's, yeah, and it turned out this year after the book in a solo show at the Eduard Planting Gallery. At, what is the address, Feiko? Eerste Bloemdwarsstraat. You can still see the pictures of my work. The press has been amazing, and it's really shocking. And actually, had to be honest about it, I have difficulty owning all this because, like I said, I walk freely and do what I think I need to do. And it's been picked up by so much press, this book, that it's kind of daunting from the from the Independent, Black Book, Yahoo, Financieel Dagblad Personal just had it in their magazine, and it's. I really feel that, yeah, it's. I try to work with as less ego as possible, and then this becomes just like wonderful attention to the city and my work, and that's it. I feel very grateful for this. So, New York City. Yeah, I relocated to Amsterdam, but New York City is still #1, to be really honest with you. And the funny thing is, I photographed this picture 2 weeks ago, and that says a lot about New York. I was working. To pay the rent, I work events, and those are like often the fundraisers or political events with heads of states. And this was a fundraiser from Partnership with Children, wonderful organization. And they had an auction, and literally within 7 minutes, they auctioned off $125,000. And they sold nothing. They literally didn't sell anything. And that's typical New York. It's like people who like buy a table, companies who buy a table to fund a cause. And here comes actually the story. The cause was to fund children in communities in New York City that need help when it comes to like having art class, judo lessons, or clothing even. And that's kind of baffling about New York. They're like, you know, people who are, you know, the economic differences are really big in New York, and people do a lot of good in New York, and it's all private. That's where I make my money with as well, to like to photograph it. So yeah, New York #1, but it's always good to have in mind that the #1 is, you know, reserved for a very select group of people in my city. And also, when it comes to politics, this is another project that I'm working on. These are my children cadets that I'm still working on. Often, this is like a small private-run academy of cadets where all the parents from Latino descent, heritage, send their kids to become this American that is actually that they run that extra mile to become the example citizen. And especially now in today's politics, it's so, yeah, it's kind of painful to like see that, you know, the story behind these parents are like, they want to make themselves, yeah, they kind of like want to show others to be really proud of their children who are the new Americans, and they want to become, you know, the better citizen than anyone could ever be. And that's when they send them to academies that have like a total military regime. And also, yeah, on my jobs, I come into like locations and subcultures that are totally unknown to me and unknown from the street. But this is, believe it or not, this is the second floor from a fashion store in New York City on 90th Street in Madison. And this is originally a hunting rifle dealer. And you know, people who are hunting, who buy rifles for hunting purposes are often men, but they bring their, you know, they bring their partners who are female to that store, and they were bored to death during those visits, so they started a clothing line. So from the street, you have literally a fashion store with, you know, those hunting tweeds, you know, garments, and upstairs on the second floor, that's where the guys look at the rifles. And you see actually there behind, it's terrible, painful to watch, the wall covered with photographs of all the trophies in Africa. And it's, yeah, it's really painful. But this is, I'm walking in there, and it's like, you know, you can't fantasize this. So that's also New York. It's still #1 for me, but it definitely is something that that I can, yeah, I can say there's a lot of things that are not perfect in the country that I come from, that I visit. So I want to like backtrack a little bit, and that's I started to realize that the moment that I lived in New York City, that my mother was an immigrant. I never realized that when I lived and grew up in Holland. I was born, we just talked about it, I was born in Ilpendam, above Amsterdam. And this was my mother. She moved in the 1960s to Holland, married a merchant marine, my father, who was never at home. And she was a stranger in a strange land. And as a child, you don't see that. You just grow up with somebody who speaks, her Dutch was really funny. She always like twisted the words. So people were always asking like, what do you say? And actually my Dutch was in the beginning also really bad. So what I've realized now, I come from my mother raised us mostly alone with me and my brother. And yeah, a very needy woman who also, you know, felt safe with us and felt very unsafe outside of that little family. And now I realize what it is to be a stranger in a strange land, to be alone, to feel lonely, and to hold on to those little things that characterize the country that you're from. Believe it or not, I saw that when I grew up, I saw that on Dutch television, those immigrants that moved to Australia and they had those silly windmills, and I was always thinking like, you know, this is like so pathetic. Seriously, I have teaspoons with windmills. I have this little tin with the Queen Juliana on it. It's like all these like really typical Dutch stuff that I just like at some sort of way embrace and hold on to. I totally understand it now. And that's when I walk into the city, and these are pictures that not always are published in the book, but you know, when I see a little Spanish kid like this, I see myself, me, that spoiled baby, going out of his mind that he's not getting his way. And then I see myself, and I only like realized at the moment I moved to New York. There is a big Hispanic community, of course, we know that now with what you see on the news. Holland doesn't have it. And now suddenly, when I say that I've been raised by an Argentinian mom, I get like nods of confirmation what that means. It's like, you know, it's like the Italian son and the relationship with La Mama. Oh, 5 minutes already? Whoa. So, yeah. And that's how I also like work with the celebrities. When I see Larry Flint, it's a big guy and it's a mogul, but I try to make him more human. And I'm like, love the fact that his bodyguard, you know, combs his hair, this intimate situation. That's what I love when I have this assignment. And it's the same with the king and queen. I'm there on assignment. This is what I give to my client. But, you know, this is actually what I really photographed. It's like the Secret Service is there laughing, and it all makes it like suddenly they become like all so human. And it's the same Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know what these two guys doing there in the back, like photobombing my picture, but you know, I was just fascinated by the boots he was wearing. And it's the same with like an assignment that I hate. It's like on a red carpet, but that's an event, a fundraiser event. And what I'm focused on is like, how do you feed 350 people at the same time? This machine that is running, people walking in and out of the kitchen. And it's like, it's the people who work who make it all happen. It's the anonymous worker. It's like the anonymous worker that my mother was, because she had like she almost had a degree in dentistry, and she ended up working in the laundromat of an old people's home because she didn't have her papers. So I have this fascination with the anonymous worker, and that's you can see that very much in my book. Next one. It's like, you know, a Don Corleone setting, but these people are actually in the service industry. They're getting a briefing from the manager. And this is in the Pierre Hotel in New York. The next. That's the White Party from Duncan Stuttenheim. What's his name? Yeah. And that was at the Barclays Center in New York. And, you know, it's all wonderful. I had to photograph him, but I love the guys who make it happen. Next. Sorry, I'm not. And this is also wonderful. Like the book, they asked me, the publishing house asked me to photograph architecture because that sells the book. It's really important. And I'm so not an architectural guy. So I had to force myself to photograph architecture. And if people have been inside of this building, it's this massive inside of like, as if you're in the inside of a whale. So impressive. Calatrava designed this building. It cost $4 billion to make this building. And I was outside frustrated because I couldn't find myself inside. So I walked outside and I noticed this man putting rubber mats on the floor. It just rained. And simply, the building was structured that if it rains, people might slip before they enter. So it's the anonymous worker who had to make this like huge hub, transportation hub, work by putting in these mats. And I'm just fascinated by that. The way I work is I actually stand there for quite a long time and I wait till something happens in front of my camera. So yeah, I put the worker on a pedestal. That's basically it. And yeah, quickly, I have to now go, I have to run. This 50 minutes go way faster than I expected. Also, living in New York City is you see subcultures. You see there's a big, actually Pakhuis promoted this this event by the smelt cruise of New York City is not a melting pot, absolutely not. People live segregated and it's all okay. We just deal with each other. It's actually the green dollar and the American flag that binds us, and often the rest doesn't. So it's wonderful to see how like I kind of like with my work try to break stereotypes. No, it doesn't have to be, you know, the single mom with his children. That's statistics. I love to see, you know, strong women who are graduating, dad with his son, yeah, pride. I like to see people who are proud where they come from and show that. And I asked him, can I photograph you? And he was, yes. I live in Harlem right now, and the walls that are available are now being done by hipsters from Williamsburg. And this is actually an advertising for Superfly, I think it's a movie that's coming out. That's, you know, that's the graffiti nowadays in prime, on prime locations. And yeah, Leslie, I was actually just doing groceries, sitting there. Shall I ask him? Shall I not ask him? Typical New York. You see people in the most, you know, the most strange situations. And the most beautiful thing is the reaction of the people around it, as if it's the most normal thing on, you know, on the world. Everybody's doing his own business, only nobody is sitting next to him, though. So I'm going to flip through this. I understand this. Battery Park. This was actually Queen's Day back then in Battery Park City. I understand now why, you know, you do that when you live abroad for 18 years. Yeah, so with foreigners' eyes, I look at the city of New York, and now I realize that also I look with foreigners' eyes back when I'm in Amsterdam. I have this wonder again when I'm back in Amsterdam. Have you ever paid close attention to the skies? We all know that we have beautiful skies. Yesterday I was looking at it and I was like, this is just beautiful. I just photographed it when I came into Holland. And this is for me poetry now that I live in New York. Like, you know, this, even the color of the cartons of milk say something to us. That's halfvolle melk. And just like, you know, having your sandwich outside during a break, for me this is poetry. I'm amazed by this, and I see the beauty suddenly in the things that we so take for granted when you live here. So yeah. New York can definitely do without me, that's for sure. De dijk says, you know, deze stad is een veel te mooie vrouw, but zij geeft geen moer om jou. That's definitely New York. She doesn't care about you, whether you're not there or not. But yeah, geen koffie zonder koek, that's for sure. Thank you.
Richard, super. That was absolutely wonderful. Now, please stay here. We're going to ask you a few questions, and you can keep the mic. Thank you very much. I had the feeling we could have gone on for hours. How many photos are in the book?
It's 256 pages, so divided by 2, sort of, like 120.
Okay,
like,
and out of a selection of how many?
Yeah, no, I actually like clicked on my New York City folder, and it has 60,000 images. That's like a lot of garbage, of course. I selected it down to 600. That I gave to the graphic designer, and he made the narrative, his story. It's a wonderful thing. A book is a collaboration. As a photographer, you have to let it go at a certain point. And then other people work with it with their expertise. And he made the story, yeah.
And now it's finished.
Erik Rikkelman did that, by the way.
And it's quite new. It came out 2 months ago?
Yeah.
2 months ago?
Yes.
And it's now going on right now.
Worldwide.
Let me ask the first question. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you work? Do you just walk out of the door and randomly roam the streets, or do you go through the newspaper to see if there are events on, or do you do...
That's interesting. There are a lot of photographers like who work on events, who work on what's happening. I don't. I love to see dad bringing his kid to school. I love to see like the normal daily life.
But do you wake up and think, I'm going to go to Queens, to that park? And
well, when I made the book, because the book was an assignment, I had to go out and photograph different boroughs and different things. Then I really, I caught the last snowstorm in 2017, that's in the book. Okay. Then I have to wake up at 6 in a bloody snowstorm, photographing.
And do you
and
bike,
hating
do
my
you
job.
Walk, do you subway, do you taxi?
Everything. No taxi, walk or subway, or bus. And I always have a camera on my belt. I always work. I always have that with me if I'm lucky. Not now. It's in repair now, actually.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, let's open up the floor for questions. Does anyone have a question for Richard? Please raise your hand or stand up. Yes, front row. And I'm going to give you the mic because then the live stream can hear it as well. All right, I'm going to hold it.
Okay. I was just wondering if Dutch people like different photos than American people do.
Yes, that's a very good question. I realized that I photographed New York kind of as an insider, so a lot of things are familiar to New Yorkers. I, for example, have the Union Rat. It's this big blow-up rat that you sometimes see in New York street sceneries. And that's something that's unknown, but New Yorkers know right away that's the Union Rat. When like something shady is going on at the construction site, the Union puts a rat in front of it. Like, you know, so I realized that a lot of things New Yorkers right away recognize, and Dutch people, you know, just see the picture.
Because Richard, you don't explain like you do now your photos in the book.
No, my book is purely only images.
And what was the reason for?
Well, yeah, I didn't. I wish I had 25 minutes instead of 15, because I wanted to explain that like we all have our own story, and what I realize is when people walk through it, they basically connect through their own story. So I hear a lot of things of pictures that I have that I've never heard of, or new things that I didn't know. And I love that it creates stories instead of like me telling a story, which I also do. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Another question from Jan. Yes. Yeah. Our next speaker.
It's not really a question because I know the answer, but can you tell me how you made this picture? Because it's such a great picture.
Yeah, I can, Jan. Nobody's looking at me. Basically, the cameras nowadays, I love to be a fly on the wall. I hate it when people notice that they're being photographed. When the energy changes, people start to like pose or feel uncomfortable or don't want it. That's also a thing. So I work with a Wi-Fi camera that's connected with my phone often. So in this picture, I have my camera on a huge long stick. And I have an app, so I'm basically showing the outside world that I'm looking at my phone as if I'm texting, but I'm looking through my camera and I see exactly what I'm photographing.
It's like a next level selfie stick thing.
That's the perfect, if Google would like ask test people to like have a camera implanted in the eye, I would be the first one to do that. Yeah.
All right. Other questions? Yes. I'm going to make a sprint and then over there, all the way in the back. Go ahead.
What is your favorite photo and why?
That's, I've heard an artist, a painter once say that it's asking a mother, who's your favorite child? I definitely have pictures that I'd rather not have in the book, but that's like, you know, when you let it go, people choose pictures that they like. And I'm like,
But a cover photo, maybe?
Yeah, that's an interesting image. The cover photo that's actually the first image. I photographed standing in between two subway cars on the bridge, on the Manhattan Bridge, because you're looking at the Brooklyn Bridge. And basically, the train stood still for like a couple of minutes, so I was able to, it's illegal to do that. But I didn't choose this picture. I'm very glad that they did, because they wanted, you know, they wanted to have the feel of this city. But yeah, I'm very happy that that there is so much talent, and it's good to like work with people who know what they're doing. Yeah.
I'm going to the last question because time-wise, so this is very, very special. The last question.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, like, with New York in comparison to other cities, why, why do so many subcultures exist instead of just melting together?
Right.
Yeah, like what part of the city makes that possible?
I think it's well, I'm not somebody who specialized in that, but I can only talk about what I see. I noticed that when I moved to New York, you get your first jobs from Dutch people. You see that like the English work with the English. It's kind of like the Gangs of New York, that movie. It's like the same still. Like the Irish hire the Irish and the French hire the French. So you create these safe havens. And that's all what it is. It's safety. It's like what I started with. It's making common grounds and feel safe and have allies to prosper. And it's a natural thing which is completely accepted and seen as something that is a powerful thing in New York. And I think that a community as in Holland can learn from the fact that it doesn't always have to be a problem if, you know, if people are from another religion of another group. It cannot. Where is Morocco Day here in Amsterdam? Because every single nationality has a day in New York and celebrates where they come from. You know, why can't we do that here? Like, you know, so I try to, you know, learn from using things as a power tool instead of an issue.
Well, I think that's a beautiful message to finish off. Very positive. Can we give a very warm applause, Richard? That was wonderful. What I am going to say is that, well, you already, you might have heard it, you have an exposition, a solo photo expo going on in the Eduard Planting Gallery, which is in the Jordaan, and the street was the Eerste Bloemdwarsstraat. I'm not going to translate that. And it's still, it's only this month, so you have to go if you want to see it. And Richard bought a big suitcase with books in it. They're for sale for €40. And of course, you're going to get a signature in it and maybe a special message if you want something special. And also a free print, a small, sorry, a small free print of the cover shot. Yeah. Yeah. So Richard will be here afterwards to have a chat with. All right. Exposition is this month only. So only it ends. Yeah. All right, Richard, thank you very much. Yep. Cheers, we'll give him one more applause. We'll leave the book here. And then we're going to go to our second guest. And he lives in Amsterdam as well, but full time. His name is Jan Rothuizen. And he is a visual artist. And he's quite famous. And he's most famous for his soft atlases. Soft atlases. Those are atlases full of maps of cities that are maps. You could use them to walk through a city, but are actually even more stories. And they're quite funny as well. We're going to see them in a minute. He has so far mapped Amsterdam, Beirut, New York City, Tokyo, and last week he was in Rio de Janeiro working on that. And he's been published in books, newspapers, magazines, online, both in the Netherlands and internationally. Can I have a huge round of applause for Jan Rothuizen? Jan, welcome.
Thank you.
Please have a seat, maybe that's the easiest. And we're going to have a Q&A, the two of us and all of us together. And Jan has brought his iPad. And so Jan, I'm going to give you a mic. And
Hello.
and you are, well, you chose Richard's image first because you are friends.
We are friends, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, we met in New York. I lived in New York way back when I was early 20s, 25. And Richard is there for 18 years, but I only... For me, it was 2.5 years, and then I realized I was a much better artist in Amsterdam. Now, I really enjoyed it, but it was also really difficult. But I came back 4 or 3 years ago to do a commission about a project. And the interesting thing is that this image that Richard is showing, the skyline of New York, is such an image that we all know. And I want to go back to one of the first images that were made of the same skyline, although it was still very flat. This is actually a book, a drawing by a Dutchman, and he traveled in, oh, I have to look at the other book. like this is the journal of Jasper Dankaert. And he traveled to New York in 1679. Can we all read this? Yeah, it's very clear. And this is a copy, this book is in the Brooklyn Museum, a Brooklyn Library. And they asked me to do something with this for an exhibition. And so I started reading it. And it's really, I mean, it's a really beautiful book. And not so much because it's very old, but also because it really relates in a strange way to the way I look at things. Or you can really, when you read it, maybe you have to explain, he was a Labadist, which is a sect from southern Holland. And he went abroad to New York to look for land, so he could start a community there. But he was sort of like in disguise. He couldn't say he was a Labadist because it was forbidden. But he wrote this, oh, it's all there, huh? I'm explaining it, yeah. But he wrote this journal. And the beautiful thing of the journal is that he was not a very scholared type of man. He was, I think he was quite a common man, but he felt very scholarish. I don't know how to say it, but there is some naivety in it which is very touching. And he made one of the first drawings of New York actually looking from Brooklyn, just as Richard's picture does.
So it's very much like a Dutch city, actually,
yeah.
If you look at it like this.
Yeah, look at the houses. It was a Dutch city, huh?
Yeah.
New Amsterdam, yeah. And also the Wall Street, I mean, we know the name Wall Street, but here you actually see it. It was actual, it was a dike. Is it here? Yeah, I think it's here. So I used this material, the writings of this writer, to visit New York again with my own old eyes from living there and his old eyes. And what I did was I reconnected, or I went to the places where he took the drawings. And this is Sandy Hook. And you can see this is the D, that's actually Brooklyn, I think. And then oh, it's right here. Yeah, this in the middle is Manhattan, but it was still very small, so it was still New Amsterdam. But he was really great, like the way he drew the whales. It's like very childish in a way, and that's what that was also in his writing. So it was very, you could really relate to it in a way. And what I did was, I went to the same place, but I drew what was actually there, and there's like a lot of airplanes now. So this is JFK.
So Jan, can you show us a drawing of yours to compare?
Yeah. Well, this is, for example, what I did. Try to go back to the same place, and then I drew the buildings that were actually there now.
So the art or the craft you have is actually 300, 400 years old.
It is,
Seeing
yeah,
a city,
but I mean, I think especially New York, there is a tradition of people going there and looking for it and seeing things in it.
I know there's more. Yeah.
I keep you waiting. All right, this is 20 years ago I lived on Drake's Avenue and North 7th. This is where I lived. And this is Williamsburg in Brooklyn. And there was, at the time that I lived there was only one Thai restaurant, one ATM machine, and only one place where you get like a decent coffee. And today it's like, it's hipster Mecca, you could say.
Because Jan, we're looking at this is a soft, you call this a soft atlas, right?
Yeah, I call this a drawing, actually.
Oh, drawing,
yeah.
okay.
But to go back to you
yes.
about what it means, a soft atlas is that you could say in a regular atlas, all the things you can see, you can check. So if the table is drawn on the map, you can actually touch it. Okay. And I'm interested in the things that you remember, like, for example, I remember a lot of things in this place, but also the things that you maybe think, but are not really there. So that makes it a soft atlas. So the hierarchy of information is sort of like loose.
And so, because there's loads and loads of information in here, whose information is this? Is this yours? Is it people you meet? Is this interviews you do?
It's all, actually. It's very important for me first to go there, and I chose to do a drawing of this particular street because I visited when I was younger a lot. I lived there, and I returned to the streets 20 years later, and it changed so rapidly. Like I made like a little sketch of the rules of attraction. So it starts with cheap rents, the artists come in, the bar shops, restaurants, then it becomes safe. Then the richer people come in, and the richer people get children. And then the rents rise, of course. And then the artists leave, and the people buy it up. But there is like, yeah, I was interested because for me, a lot of things of the New York that I was visiting now, the changing city sort of like came together here. Like Richard was saying about graffiti artists that doing commercials for a movie. Here's also a street artist doing a mural of Andy Warhol and Basquiat. And they added the text like, fight for street art, which is really ridiculous, of course. But then everybody goes to take pictures of it, because people love it.
Yes. And you have one from Amsterdam with you
Yeah.
as well?
Actually from Amsterdam North.
I live in Amsterdam North.
Where do you live?
I live on the Nieuwerdammerdijk.
Oh, that's what we call, oh, this is in Dutch, but we call this the Ivory Coast of North, you could say, like.
Yes.
This is where the cute little houses are.
That's where I live. The Ivory Coast, the Goudkust. Oh, I've seen this one
Goudkust,
before.
yeah.
I shouldn't have said this.
Yeah.
All right.
This is interesting. There's like a
Our local bar.
Local bar.
Yes.
You were there?
Shall I translate? So my local bar is full of white hetero men who talk too loud. And it's for sale. Yeah, it's actually sold by...
It's sold by the, by the neighborhood now, yeah.
So have you heard this from people there? Or did you go in and you thought...
Levels, so it always starts with going to a place and try to think of what you feel.
Yes.
And to really use your senses. How does it smell? What do I hear? What do I feel? But then there's also a lot of research on the way back.
I fully agree with this, by the way. So...
But I also went to this other bar, het Bloemetje. Oh, het Boemeltje. You know this?
Oh yes, next to the ice cream shop.
Yeah, that's the I think that's the best last stop in North.
Yes.
Because when they're about to close, they go like, everybody fucks off. And then when you walk out, they say, goodbye, sweetie.
So yeah, we're zooming in now. But if we zoom out, how does a drawing like this start? Do you start with, this is the edges, and I'm going to walk, I'm going to bike, I'm going to go online?
With an idea that you see that Amsterdam North is really developing, that is changing really fast. And then I tried to think of a way of how to show this. And I decided to show it through a route of cafes. So I started in really you could say, experimental Quebec stone special pizzas. And then to what's the name again? Really nice place, the Space, where really young people play Kate Bush. And they sell cassettes, like really, really hip. So I thought, what is an interesting way to connect all these old things and new things?
But you do this behind your desk researching on Google Maps?
Not so much, yeah. Well, the idea is, let's go visit bars in Amsterdam North.
All right.
Good idea.
and then you just walk, you bike. How long does it take before you get such a feel for this part of the city?
Actually, the starting time, we got really drunk. So I'm
of course, it's bars. Yes.
I'm trying to see, like, I remember writing this down, and was it like 3:25 or 2:25? I couldn't read it anymore. But so yeah.
So how much time have you spent? Is this one day or one night?
This is one night. So
wow.
you could say the recording time is one night. I start from 8 till 2:30.
Yeah.
And I have a little notebook with me.
Yeah.
And I write down things and I take pictures of everything.
Okay.
And then when I'm working on it, I have a big sheet of paper, like 50-65, so it's about quite big. And I use my notes to reconnect, but I use Google Maps and I use a lot of things.
Okay. Can we see one more? Do you have more?
Yeah.
I don't know how many you have.
And
then we'll go for questions to the...
Oh, this is... this is a drawing I did of Louis, and he's a very big, man who's very self-sufficient, and he lives in Bed-Stuy, which is a neighborhood in Brooklyn. And I thought it was interesting for him because I wanted. There's like a lot of houses are being bought up, and I think he says it all. Yeah, since a couple of years, things changed fast. People who took care of their house for 40 years have to move out because their building is suddenly bought by Arab or European investors. But this is sort of, I call this more a portrait. So this is about a man living in his kitchen.
Yes. But we don't see him. You don't draw the man.
No,
No.
I'm not very good.
You draw the.
Yeah, I'm not very good at drawing people also.
Okay. Any questions for Jan? We must have people from Amsterdam here who have seen their street or their neighborhood as well.
Yeah.
I was wondering, do you ever go to like really boring places as well? Like Assen or Hogeveen?
Where are you from?
From the Achterhoek, which is not boring at all, of
Yeah,
course.
no, but it's, I
All
mean,
right.
I think I do also visit places that are not interesting, because sometimes I'm curious about a place and people say, oh no, there's really nothing there. And that's when I think, oh, that's really great.
Can you find a story, a drawing everywhere?
Yes.
Or have you been to places like that I can't?
Well, the
Get anything
difficulty,
out of this
because I don't like places that are very staged. So like when it's already a play and when people already thought about how it's directed. So when a situation is very much staged already, then I become a critic of the person who staged it. So that's not.
Other questions for Jan? Yes.
I was wondering how you found this format, because I think you've been doing similar drawings for a while. I don't know what you did before you did this and how this
Yeah,
came to be.
it actually happened in New York. I was living in New York. I was trained as a painter, and I made very big paintings that looked really like modern art paintings. But I also noticed that I kept escaping my studio, so I went walking through the city and said, oh, I have to buy this paint, I have to go there. So there was this, and then I felt, well, if I'm an artist, I should not excuse myself. That's the worst. So I decided that walking through a city should be my work. And it took a long time before I found this format where it's text combined with images. Because I took a lot of photographs as well. I wrote books, I wrote poems, I wrote little stories. And somehow I feel these two together is a way of talking for me now. Or it's a language, yeah.
All right. Next question.
You also do this explanatory work, like in the Volkskrant, where you explain, for instance,
Yes.
how it works behind the scenes of a funeral home or something like that.
Yes.
Does that have any relation to what you're showing
Well,
here?
actually, I show, this is the same, it's a column, so I'm free to decide what I want to show there. So this drawing of Amsterdam North has also been published in the Volkskrant. So the only thing with working for a newspaper is that you think of a larger public. So it should not be too, it can be personal, but not too introspective. It can also be introspective. Well.
Next question on the other side. Yes. Go ahead.
I know you also produced a VR piece, and I was wondering if you also think about expanding your style into different media still.
Yeah, I'm actually I did a VR piece where you're actually standing inside of a drawing, where the space that you're in is built up in 3D, which was really accelerating to do, and it asks for totally new directions of how you use the text. For example, here it's not scripted. So how do you keep the same freedom of looking around and discovering things for yourself without being pushed into a corner?
Is that a way you want to develop yourself coming years?
Well, yes.
VR,
well,
AR?
I'm doing now a new project, which is in Colombia. I'm making a book there, a Spanish book, together with a big project where you're able to visit 8 places in Colombia 24 hours long, so you can wander through the place yourself. So that's for me very exciting to keep developing. So I'm still doing that, yeah.
All right. Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about the Rio project? Your approach?
Yeah.
Have you been there?
Yeah, I
How do you
just
find
came back actually. I was invited to make a drawing about a project there, which is called Favela Painting, which is sort of like a piece where they ask people who live in the favela to make a painting. And I have a drawing of it actually, the first drawing. So this is the neighborhood. And you see, like, this is the street. This is actually my first sketch, where I use a map of Google to locate all the things that I see. But, is it here? Yeah. It's in Dutch.
Oh, wow.
So what they did is they paint the houses and they paint the mural. But the paint is being washed away already, so now they like train people to make it into a mosaic, which is really incredible work. And I think they're doing a really great job. And for me, the favela is particularly interesting because there is a different kind of structure of law. I mean, it's gang ruled, which is really heavy and it's really sad. And I'm now working on a drawing to show how the structures of power work within this small community, and that's what I'm doing now.
Jan, and it's always black and white, or do you work with color as well?
Mostly it's in black and white, and that's also because it's already quite figurative, and I want the text and the image to be one. So I try to do it like this.
All right. One or two more questions. Yes.
Yeah. Do you ever make mistakes that it turns out, and then how do you correct the mistakes?
I never make mistakes.
Do you mean mistakes in the drawing, or mistakes in the interpretation of what's going on?
Yeah, let me
the
show you
picture,
some.
And then how he corrects his pictures.
Yeah, the trick is that I leave some mistakes in, and the other ones I take out. So sometimes I'm looking if it's in this one also. Then sometimes I cross something out and I leave it in and I write it underneath. But I also work with editors who look at the texts and they say, oh, this, you cannot write it like this, or I understand what you mean, but somebody else will not. So there is also a level of text editing in it. And I'm looking if I can find some examples of...
Here we're in Amsterdam.
Oh, this is actually my own neighborhood.
So what street do you live?
Huh?
What street?
Ah, here, I live here. Here do we live. Ramses, my son, me, 48. My wife, Nienke, Augustus. And what I did with this map is that I try to understand how I use my neighborhood and why I go to certain... Like, for example, this is where they sell things for festivities. But the people are very, always like this. And there's a fish shop where they all come from Volendam, which is a small town on the Zuiderzee. And if you talk to them, you can completely understand them. But when they talk among each other, it's like, it's like war. I cannot do it.
You start on paper and then make it digital?
I work with a dip pin dip, like a fountain pen. And it's quite big sheets. And so I make it in ink and then I scan it. And then when I scan it, I can take the errors out. Yeah, but it's pretty much the same thing. So, yeah, that's also nice. I don't use TPEX. Yeah.
Jan, last question. You've been doing this for quite a while. How, in your perspective, are the cities changing? What have you seen happening throughout the years? What are developments you see?
I think when you're younger and you discover a city and you think this is the city. And when you grow older, you realize that the city that you were brought up in is changing. And in the beginning, you think like, oh, the city's changing. And then you realize, oh no, I'm getting older. The city's always changing. So I'm quite keen on change in the city.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Can we give Jan a super applause? Thanks. Now, you haven't brought anything to plug. I wish I could say something. He has a wonderful website, and you can find his work in loads of places. So that's what I'm going to say about that. Cheers, Jan. Then before we go to our third guest speaker, which will be a Skype interview, we have a small intermezzo. And the intermezzo is actually a thing we often do here in the Pakhuis, and that's because we do loads of research, or I actually must say Eva does loads of research. That is Eva, would you be so kind to stand up? She has done all the research and all the preparation for this. And actually, yes, you've done all the research and preparation for this, and I'm actually reading out all Eva's brilliant thoughts and research now. but the applause is for you. Now, a lot of things we ran into, we thought, oh, brilliant, but we couldn't get a speaker here, or it was just full of it. So we're going to share a few things that came up from the research, and I thought just in a few minutes we share some great things from the research with you. Just very briefly, and it's just for inspiration, for fun. You can take a photo of it, or remember the website, and it's just for maybe at home to deep dive into. And we actually have 5. So this is a very fun one for the people that live in Amsterdam North, maybe, or take the pond a lot of time. There's a new podcast which is called the Pondcast. It's brand new. They only have 1 episode out yet, and it's about people who take the pond. So that's a little ferry that's going from this side of Amsterdam to Amsterdam North. So it's a brand new podcast, and it's quite cool. It's quite cool. Number 2, Sonic West. And this is a project from Soundtrack City, which discovers the sound of the west side of Amsterdam. Do we have people from the west here? Amsterdam West? All right. So you can hear the sounds of your part of the city there. And they also have an app, and they encourage people to record the sounds of Amsterdam West. And you have to have the app, otherwise we would have let you listen to it. And they also have a radio show called Gentrification. I already heard a little bit about that. Radio satire about the gentrification of Amsterdam. Gentrification. Excuse my English, gentrification, but it's about gentrification in Amsterdam West. And the interesting thing is Sonic West is also about, and this is number 3, we are in the week of We Make the City, We Sell the City. Anyone have heard of We Sell the City? The movement? This is actually an We Make the City called We Sell the City. And this actually looks completely like We Make the City, but it's completely different and the text is different. I'm going to read out like the first 2 lines. The aging hipsters of Pakhuis de Zwijger, that would be me and Ewa then probably, Waag Society and the Amsterdam Economic Board are putting on another propaganda festival. Its purpose to mask the neoliberal destruction of our city. Amsterdam is becoming dull and truddig and we need to change it around. It's quite fun, and it's actually another side of the story of what's happening in the city and the gentrification and the gentrification that we just saw. Number 4, also from the research, and that is the guests we have here have stories to tell you. But if you're young, you want to create your own story, and how do we do that with visuals and Instagram? And the thing that we saw is that what we see a lot of developments in cities, whether it's restaurants or museums, are being made ready to Instagram. Have you heard about this trend yet? So this is a new restaurant here in Amsterdam, Mama Kelly. And they actually put a selfie box in the restaurant for young people to stand in or up or under and then take a selfie. And it's been recently opened, this restaurant, and every night there's a line of youngsters there who want to take a selfie in this thing. And this is actually part of a larger, let's make it ready for Instagram. I don't know if you have heard of Instagram museums. These are special museums just built for people to Instagram in. There are 2 in New York City. Richard, I don't know if you've been, let me hear, Museum of Ice Cream and the Color Factory. Have you been in them? So these are artist installations, and they're actually made to step into and then take loads of cool photos. It's like an experience, but made for the selfie and the Instagram generation. Quite cool. And number 5, last but not least, this is I think it's actually brilliant, and we'd love to have them here, but they're not. These are 2 ladies, Stephanie and Yvonne, and they've made an interactive web documentary called Future Cities. And their take on the future cities is that they've gone to Kinshasa, Lima, Yangon, Medellin, and Addis Ababa. And they say these are the cities of the future, not in the sense of their size, but in the way they lead culturally. So they say one city that will be the culinary, so cuisine-wise hub of the future. Lima will be the startup hub. And I think we have a small clip from Addis Ababa about their music scene, and that they will be a leading city in the future when it comes to music. Let me see, you have a small clip.
And I'm always dancing. In every wedding, and I listen to music, and I mean, always you can find me in the middle. And then so, this is my life. So whatever challenging in my life, I never change my talent. I don't accept just to they working here and living here. But when I see them problems, they don't have house. They don't have family here. So I know the pain. I'm a street children before also. And when I start work, so after I start, I ask permission to sleep here. I sleep 7 years under the bar.
Yeah, it's actually quite wonderful website, and that city is actually what I didn't know. What I've learned is that Addis Ababa has 80 tribes in the city, and they all have their own music, and they all have their own dances, and they're all influencing each other. A lot of jazz music coming from there, and there's a lot of experimentation there and new styles erupting. So keep an eye out. This is a very lovely website. So that's for the intermezzo, and now it's time for our third guest, and we're going to do a Skype interview with a French guest. His name is Richard Koek, and I'm going to take a look at if we have a live feed with Hervé yet. And there's Hervé. Hervé, bonsoir, hello, good evening. Can we all wave to Hervé? And he is in the closet there, the camera, so maybe we can wave to Hervé. Hervé, you're there. You can see us now. Hello, Hervé. I'm Timon. I will introduce you in a minute, and then we can start chatting. I hope the microphone is doing it. Oh, there we are. All right, Hervé. To introduce you to our audience, you are a cinematographer, an editor, producer from Paris in France. He has done many things in his long career, and I cannot read out your whole resume because it would take me very long. What I can tell is that you might know Hervé from his critically acclaimed documentary Closer to the Dream, which chronicled Barack Obama's historical campaign through the stories of ordinary Americans in 2007 and 2008, that campaign. We're not going to talk about that. We are going to talk about your upcoming documentary Life Underground, about the connected lives of subway riders underground in 14 cities around the world. It's a transmedia project, and I have learned that you're going to take over our screen and going to share that transmedia with us, and it's currently under development. Hervé, bonjour. Please give him a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, Hervé Koek.
Thank you. Actually, I'm in San Francisco right now, so it's noon
well, good
in San Francisco, and that's where I'm based, between San Francisco and Paris. And so Life Underground is an ongoing project because it's already online, and it's already available for the public to check out, and it's been online since March 2018 with 15 cities. So really, for me, the idea came from my desire to connect with passengers, and I'm sure if people ride the subway, they have practically the same experience. You're looking at people and being intrigued by someone, or having the desire to engage and like asking questions, to just be curious about someone. But of course, you never dare doing it. It's not appropriate to just talk to anyone in the subway. But so isn't
the subway like a bit? People are a little bit anxious or scared, even more than a normal train or on the streets. Isn't it even harder to talk to a person in a subway?
Well, that's one of the biggest surprises of the project is when people agree to be filmed. First, it's the first miracle. So when they say yes, I agree to be filmed, and I film them silently during their travel until they exit the subway, and then afterwards I ask them if they have a moment so I can record their voice. The idea being that I need the voice as I use their voice as an interior voice. So when we look at them traveling the subway, then we listen to their thoughts and what they have on their mind. And the second miracle, it's like they open up. They talk about themselves, about intimate stories, about love, about migration, relationship, so many personal things. So that's the big surprise of the project. And wherever I went, I've traveled around 15 cities so far. No, actually 16 with Taiwan recently, Taipei recently. It's the same pattern. People want to talk, and they're ready to open up and tell and give something about themselves. So that's the big miracle of this project.
And I have learned that you can take over the screen and can show us. So
sure, I'm going to do that.
I've been
So Life Underground is first of all is an interactive web documentary. So where is the share screen here? All right. So I'm going to go to the website. So life-underground.com. So that's the intro. So then it's really interactive because I really wanted to recreate the experience people can have on subway. So it's like I look at someone and I'd like to connect. I'd like to be in his or her thoughts and discover what's just behind somebody that I don't know, an anonymous person in a public space. So that's what I wanted to recreate. So it's translated into 10 languages right now.
Wow.
Even in Dutch, because I traveled to Belgium, and in Belgium I had to do the bilingual thing, French and Dutch. And so you're in front of this map, and you have options. You can travel randomly, and then it takes you. So I start, I click on random, and it gives you like a trajectory, and it's connecting cities together. It's like a dream. You take a subway, you go from Santiago to Los Angeles to Montreal, etc., etc. And then along the way, you discover a city underground, because my idea was also to feel the pulse of a city. And I don't think of a better way to feel a city than to take the subway and look at people, the way they walk, the way they dress, the way they interact. And so that's wherever I travel, I go to a subway, I take the subway, and I look at people. Okay. So that's really what the project is about, and also it's about connection.
Can you
so it's just going to go random. Yes. I can also, choose a theme. You can also travel through a theme, like love, for example, and then it gives you a trajectory where you will meet people, and then they have a story related to love. So same thing with other themes.
If you can share one little thing with us, which you think will be nice.
Sure.
For Friday evening. I think love would be pretty good.
Yeah. So I'm just going to show you the way it works. So I start, and then here I'm in Madrid right now, and then I'm traveling along and looking at the architecture, because it's something important also that I wanted to focus on, and the beauty underground. What's beautiful about a city is also in the subway. The way people dress in Madrid, a lot of people in sandals. And then all of a sudden I cross someone, and there is a little name in front of the passenger, and that I can click on. Victor, for example. So I can click on Victor, and then he's going to tell an intimate story.
Me llamo Víctor Jiménez, vengo de casa de mi padre y vengo a ver a mis hijos. Ahora estoy en paro, con lo cual no tengo nada que hacer. Entonces, pues eso, he venido para ir a comer con ellos. Yo había estado trabajando 20 y tantos años siendo responsable de marketing de multinacionales farmacéuticas. Me despidieron con otros 7 más por el hecho de que éramos muy mayores, teníamos unos sueldos muy altos, contrataron a 2 personas jóvenes sin experiencia. Soy demasiado viejo y demasiado caro para las empresas.
So this is a story of someone who is in his 50s and he was laid off and very anxious about his future. So I'm just going to the end, and maybe I'm gonna ask Eva if you could maybe show another story that I selected for you, because I think it's one of the highlight of it's the oldest person I met, the oldest passenger I met in the subway, and she's amazing. So Eva, if you want to show the
do we need the screen back then, Dave?
Yeah,
give us the screen back, Hervé, then we'll show it.
So because Eva has the Eva has the file. I send the file to Eva so she can, yes.
Yeah, there we are.
Ambiance du métro, ambiance du métro.
Is there sound?
Yes.
Okay. I don't hear. So you hear the music too?
Yeah, we hear it loud and clear. Thanks.
Ambiance du métro, ambiance du métro, ambiance du métro.
So imagine you click on her name.
Je m'appelle Liliane, mais tout le monde
Can we click on Lily? No, we can't.
Plus gentil.
Yeah.
It's a clip, sorry.
J'ai connu un grand amour, mais malheureusement, ça n'a rien donné. J'ai vécu la Deuxième Guerre mondiale. Hein. J'ai connu un militaire américain, un garçon très sérieux, très gentil. Et comme je connaissais bien l'anglais, on correspondait tout le temps. J'avais un paquet de lettres comme ça et je n'avais jamais dit à mes parents, je n'osais pas. Mon père m'aurait enfermé. Hein. Il venait me chercher au bureau, on faisait la route ensemble, à pied. À un moment donné, je lui ai dit, Ray, attention, il s'appelait Ray. Parce que mon papa vient souvent par ici. On allait à pied par le cinquantenaire. Un jour, il m'a écrit, maman et moi, nous t'attendons. Si j'avais dit à mes parents, mais ils m'auraient enfermé, je n'ai jamais dit. J'ai dû écrire malheureusement à ce cher amoureux que je ne pouvais pas. Ça, c'était mon grand amour, que malheureusement, je n'ai pas pu suivre. C'était mon grand chagrin. J'y pense souvent, oui. C'est très curieux. J'ai rêvé un jour que j'étais dans une forêt et il n'y avait pas d'issue. Mais c'était merveilleux. Il y avait des plantes, des fleurs qu'on ne trouve pas sur notre terre. Alors je me dis, c'est quoi? C'est le paradis. Ça, c'était merveilleux. Mais peut-être avec tout ce qui mijote dans ma tête, toujours la nature, les fleurs, je vois des choses irréelles. Il y a beaucoup de choses qui me préoccupent parce que j'ai peur de l'avenir. Mais c'est normal, hein. Et puis je pense que je suis un peu un boulet pour ma nièce qui s'en fait beaucoup pour moi. Elle voudrait que je rentre dans une maison de repos. Je ne désire pas. Je suis trop indépendante. Elle dit, tante Lily, tu devras quand même un jour rentrer dans une maison de repos. Tu ne sauras plus rien faire. Et ça me préoccupe beaucoup. Évidemment, il y a un jour où je ne saurais plus rien faire. Il faudra pourtant que je fasse comme tout le monde, mais je ne suis pas comme tout le monde. Je suis une personne fort étrange. Malgré tout, je lutte toujours et je sais que quand je vais casser ma pipe, comme on dit, quand je vais mourir, il y aura une vie merveilleuse après ça, je crois.
Hervé, that was wonderful. And these people do open up. Because you've been to 16 cities now, you said, right? And there are 15 on the website?
Yeah, 15 on the website.
Was it were all those cities different in the sense that they had a different culture underground, or was it then when you went underground you felt I'm in the same kind of world? So was it different or more the same? Do you understand my question?
No, I think we could find a lot of differences culturally and in the way people interact also. And in Santiago, Chile, it's totally different than in Shenzhen, China, in terms of how people interact and are ready to share their stories. And it was, of course, more difficult to have people agree to be filmed in China than in Santiago. In Santiago, everybody wanted to participate. In Los Angeles as well. So but beyond that, yes, you feel. It's funny because after 2 or 3 days in the subway talking to people, I can feel a theme. I can feel something in the air in each city different, and it's related to what people have in mind at that time, or it's really about a city at a time. I think it's really anchored culturally also, and you find that along the way when you listen to people's stories.
Thank you. Let's open up the floor for questions. Anyone have a question for Hervé? Small question, yes.
Really beautiful, Hervé. Thank you for showing.
Thank you.
I was wondering, are you on your own? What kind of camera do you carry around? Is it a big camera or?
No. So I have a small Sony. It's a DSLR camera, so it looks like a still picture camera. It's the A7S II, which is really well known for being good in low light. And when people look at me with my camera, I really look like a tourist, more like a filmmaker. And so I don't think it's not intrusive. So it's really good to be. I can travel around with that camera and not be intrusive. I also have an Osmo, DJI Osmo, which is a stabilized camera. When I walk up and down the stairs until the exit, I use that because it's very stable. But also it looks like it's very, very small. And I also travel with an assistant/translator, someone who records the sounds of subways, and also helps me interact with people and translate when I don't speak the language. And also, there's a component in the website, because I was talking about recording the sounds. The sounds that I record in subways, I have given them to a musician. And I don't know if you realize there was a music with in the beginning. And the musician uses those sounds to create music pieces just from raw sounds of subways. I'm so taken by the world of subways that I even find music in subways, like in rhythm and melody. And by talking with a musician about my craziness about finding music and beauty everywhere, he was like, okay, send me those sounds, and I'm gonna create music with that. So that was the teamwork. Send him the sound, and he created like beautiful music. So all over the website, when there are like maybe 25 scores tracks, and they play randomly like that, and it's very rhythmic and melodic.
It could be on Spotify.
It could be, yeah. It could be. It's on actually on SoundCloud right now.
Oh, SoundCloud. All right, for the fans.
Yeah.
All right. Other questions? Yes.
It's a bit of a technical question, but I know in Holland it's very difficult to get a permit to film in the underground. Is it ever a problem in the other countries you filmed in?
Actually, I was lucky to be to partner with the Union of International Public Transport, and they're based in Brussels, and they really loved the project. They thought that it's a great way to promote public transportation. So thanks to them, I was able not only to reach out to subways through them, and also get a little bit of funding from the subways. So I got permission and funding, because for subways, it's another outlook on public transportation. It's another way. It's about people, and I think it enhances you know, the idea of public transportation. It celebrates public transportation, and that's why the subways were so engaged in this project.
Yes. We have time for one more question. Time flies. Last question. Yes, here in the front.
I was wondering, how long do you spend approximately with each subject? How long does it take for them to actually unveil some kind of private stories that's relevant for your narrative?
Yeah, that's really a good question, because so I filmed them. I don't know anything about them when I filmed them in the subway. It's really after, when we go somewhere quiet and I don't have my camera. I just put it away. I have my audio recorder, and we started talk. And I have a few starting questions, like, where are you coming from and where are you going to? Which might be really not significant. It's very basic, but it could open to a very personal story. I just dropped off my daughter to her father, and you know, we are divorcing right now, and things like that. But the second question that I ask is also to share a dream that they had at night, and many people. So there is also a theme about dreams, and many people share their dreams, and then all of a sudden we're in a really very intimate space, and then we can go from there. But it doesn't take long, actually. It's sometimes I spend 20 minutes. It could go. It went. The longest it went was 1 hour in China. So even though it's not easy to interact with people and to have them open up, but when they do, it's really, yeah, I had really strong experience with them, with passengers there.
Well, Hervé,
I have to add something. It's
yes,
really
last thing.
It's about random encounters. There is no casting. These people, I didn't know anything about their lives before meeting them, and before. It's all about intuition and having a feeling towards someone.
Thank you. Merci bien, and have a wonderful day in San Francisco. Last applause for Hervé. Hervé, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And
live
bye-bye. We'll wave to you, the camera. Bye, Hervé.
Bye.
Yeah,
Thank
bye
you
all.
much.
All right. We're going to our last speaker, and we're going to listen to a presentation from Ton van Gool, who is the director of Stripe Eindhoven, STRP in Eindhoven. He's a director there, and he is going to present on the latest very exciting project on 4D graffiti from the Swedish artist Aujik. And you can tell me in a minute how to pronounce that. And it's very exciting, and we actually here get a sneak peek on this project. We're the first ones to see it. Only 10 people have seen this project, as it has its world premiere only in a week's time, and we get the first sneak peek. So Ton, come up on stage and you'll get a warm applause from us. Grab that mic. Yes.
Thank you. I realized during all the other talks I had so many pictures, so some parts will be really fast because I won't get to the project itself, but it needs a bit of context. So let me see how this works.
Shall we see if it's on? They just changed it, huh? Yeah. Oh. Eva, there's no on-off button on this one. Yeah, the pointer works. All right. Eva is our human pointer, or our human clicker.
Okay.
Yes.
So a bit about the context first before we get to the project. How do I do this? Eva, shall I wave you all the time, or? Yeah. Oh, this is it. Okay. Actually, you pronounce this as Aujik.
Aujik.
He's the artist. Yep. So Stripe is the organization that I work for, and we are an organization that operates on the intersection of art and technology. It's a research program, but also a festival. And there are some slides of the festival. You can run them like real fast. so you get an impression of the festival and what we do. It's art pieces. Sometimes we do commissions for art pieces. We produce them, we co-produce them, we have them distributed around the world. There's like music and performances. There's a education program for the kids, of course. So that's Stripe. That's one of the partners. Then, of course, if you talk about Eindhoven, where I'm from, you talk about Philips and you talk about Stripe S. Stripe S is the area where Philips manufactured radios and TVs. And Philips was like a big international electronic company who was big in the 50s and the 60s, and who also did very much research at the NAT lab, the physics lab. This, for example, is Dick Rijmakers. He was working at the NAT lab, but he was also experimenting with electronic music. So this was 1957, and he looks like a very modern DJ, like doing his stuff. And if you listen to his music now, it's still really fresh and beautiful. So there's also a part of Philips that they did like proper research and also had free research on stuff. Well, the cassette has been invented, the CD has been invented on Stripe S, and something went wrong in the 90s when when Operation Centurion, it was called, and Philips couldn't compete with Asia at some point, and it was a big disaster for the city because many people had to be laid off. Philips was selling Stripe S to the city of Eindhoven, and that was at the point where Eindhoven was really at its lowest economical, but also like mental, because the mothership Philips was going down, and the entire city. I mean, my father worked for Philips. Like everyone I knew had relatives and people who worked for Philips, so it was a big thing. Now Stripe S is getting its second life, and it's getting more and more. You know, like sophisticated. We're talking about gentrification before. We come to a point at Stripe S where everything is beautiful and neat and pleasant and funny, and there's an Albert Heijn and a parking garage. And one of the legs of redeveloping Stripe S was what we call urban culture. There's a big skate park. It's one of the biggest skate parks in Europe. They were the first people who used Stripe S, and there's a big BMX park. There's this is the BMX park. The free runners, they were like investigating how to use the area before anyone lived there. There's breakdancers, the Ruggers, they just came back from America. People were doing like music, and then graffiti comes in. That's the link to the project. Eindhoven has a big area called Berenkuil. It's a roundabout with three stories. It's like an open air museum for graffiti, and every year there's a big festival and new pieces will be added. But graffiti stays a bit the same as it always was. So that was the idea to see what the next level of graffiti could be, and to make a connection between the DNA of Eindhoven, which is like technology, innovation, and maybe urban. And so that was the idea. Could Stripe think of something how we could connect the urban scene, the urban culture, with the technology and innovation? So that was the starting point for this project. And yes, so we wanted to search for the next level of graffiti. We wanted to experiment with AR, augmented reality. Everyone is familiar with AR, yeah. And this was one of the main reasons for me, is to play with Stripe S again, because we had like a playtime of 10 years, and now at this point it's all new buildings, it's all new investors. So it was a way to see if we still could use Stripe S as a playground. And of course, we wanted to add stories and art to public space. These are the people that we collaborated with, cooperated with. And then I think we get to the heroes of this story. The guy on the right for you, this guy, Sander Veenhoff, he's like the AR specialist in Holland. He's an artist. He's really up to date with what's happening in AR. And the guy with the iPad is Ojik. That's the artist. He's from Sweden. And he lives in Japan for like 10 years. And his background is both graffiti and architecture. So this is at the point where we were see where we could place the works on Stripe S. I think we could we could do the section now where we have the little films. So this is actually, if you're going to do the tour with your cell phone or with your iPad, this is what you will be experiencing. This was a special request by Stripe S. Could you do something with the chimney?
Can you tell us what the structure is?
The structure, there's a chimney there, and the layer on top of it. That's an impression from the artist. So it's not really there. It's just a virtual layer. This is like a more classical graffiti piece, and as you see, it moves, and you can actually walk around it, which is really funny because you have to design it not only from the front but all the way. This is my favorite piece until now. Yeah, the films were just ready this morning, so I just have seen them once or twice, and I'm really impressed again with what the quality is of the AR. It's also people asking, why do you want to do something with AR now? And the first answer is because it's so realistic at this point that you actually believe it. There was a point in AR that you thought, well, this is really funny. It could be, like interesting, but now the realistic value of the AR is so high that these pieces actually are there, that you actually can experience them as being there. There's funny discussions, but yeah. Yeah, iPad, yeah.
So it's not yet for the goggles or the glasses?
No.
Yet?
No.
Okay.
This is in the skate park, and he assembled pieces from the skate park and put them on top of there and reconstructed them. So it's floating there. But also the funny thing is that the people who are there, they don't know that these objects are there. But until you get your iPhone, and
they're all a bit scary. It's not floating hearts or unicorns.
That's an option. I mean, that's the language of the artist, of course,
yeah.
And you can see that he's inspired by robotics and architecture and graffiti. It's funny because we sent some pieces like stills from this video over to the people who organize the festivals there, and they said, "Well, we don't know actually about this piece. How are you going to attach it to the floor? Because we have a festival there, and how is it possible that this piece suddenly is there and you didn't tell us?" And they said, "You just put away your iPhone and it's gone." Yeah. But it's difficult for people to understand what exactly this extra layer is and what it does, and that it actually goes away if you want it to be away. And that's, of course, a totally different thing with graffiti, which is, like bad graffiti is always there until, like you get it removed. So what we did is we actually made a route to Stripe S. So the thing is that you can like rediscover Stripe S again by walking and seeing all the pieces. And there's like big stickers on the floor, and then you have to get your camera and experience it. Yeah, this is just a funny thing to explain, that we're going to do workshops with people who want to work with the toolkit that we developed. We first thought that we could like give everyone the toolkit, but it's a bit too complicated. So we first offer a workshop, and afterwards all the people who want to do something with the knowledge and the software that we gathered, you can make your own pieces and then add something, whatever, on Stripeheads in the city. And then again, this is actually what we are hoping to do next year, because this is City Hall Square, which is really a sad square, and so we're going to position something there next year when we have the next edition of Stripe Festival, which is March 30, April 7. So yeah, we see it as an option for artists to play with, and everyone is welcome to make a chapter, of this AR artworks. Yeah, that's it for now.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful and a little bit scary. All right, I'm going to go straight to the floor for questions, because there must be questions on this one. Raise your hand if you have one. Yes.
I was wondering how you're going to add the illegal aspect of graffiti into the project.
It's as illegal as you want it, because the owners of the buildings, they don't even know that they have a new piece in their house. So it's a...
So everyone can create an artwork like this anywhere?
Well, if you have this toolkit, yes. And then again, you get to the same... Yeah, maybe. Yeah. No, but we want to give it to you, and you can play with it. And in the end, of course, maybe you need some curation, but because like in real graffiti, there's also like bad AR graffiti is going to be made for sure.
Yeah, because you can create in the Vatican, you can put a devil in, for example, or
yeah.
Or we could have Donald Trump right here if we wanted in AR. Yeah.
Sander Veenhoff that you showed. He did the exhibition actually at the MoMA in New York, where he played.
That was Sander,
Sander. Where he showed his works, and so he had like a solo in the MoMA.
But the people of MoMA didn't know about that. I mean, that's part of the fun, of course.
So there are ways to be subversive and...
Yes.
Other questions? Yes.
Do you ask or need permission from the building's owners to put these images on there? So some copies might be very upset when they see something like this on their building.
Well, we didn't ask for permission. It's a present for them, so I'm not sure how they're going to take it, yes or no. But no, I'm sure in the end they will love it. But for me, it's part of the fun that they don't even know that it's there. They will see, like people there with their cell phones. There will be gatherings in front of the buildings, and they will, what is this? What's going on? And then they'll find out, and in the end, they will love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was another question here, I thought. Other questions, yes.
I was wondering how you selected this particular artist.
Especially Sander. We did lots of research on what is being done in 3D, 4D graffiti and stuff like that. And then we came across his films. He did this like these tiny films in Japan all the time. And this kind of stuff in Japan, but then it was not in AR. It was just little films that he made, and then just emailed with him. You want to do a piece in AR? And he said, well, this is the question that I'm waiting for years. To do something in AR. Do you have the knowledge and stuff like that? And Sander is great because he is an artist. But he has not a too big ego that he doesn't want to share his knowledge with another artist, which is great. Yeah.
Do you think the future will be that everyone can learn how to do this with toolkits and apps, and that this will be as common as a spray can?
I think you need some basic Unity programming skills and stuff like that, and then you need to work with AR Core and AR Kit. And I don't think anyone can do it. I couldn't, but yeah.
But in a few years' time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yes.
So fascinating project. I know the Stripe area really well, so look forward to exploring that at some point with augmented reality. How are you looking to promote this? What channels are you going to be using to, create publicity around this, or do you want to keep it very kind of cultish and a certain section of people aware of it?
No, no, we don't want to be just cultish, and I think this also will be a selfie machine. I think it will distribute itself, you know, like all the people who come there. So we think it will promote itself by, and also we're going to provide these little films to people to spread it around, and we hope that, you know, like magazines and influencers will pick it up. And
this should be hit on Instagram, right?
Sorry?
This should work on Instagram.
This will work on Instagram.
It
yes,
will work,
yes,
yeah. All right.
Is this the first project like in the world where people have done graffiti like this?
There have been mural projects in LA. I've seen examples of that, and actually there was kind of different because they projected films on top of the existing murals. So it was something else, and we didn't come across things like this yet. No.
Wow. Yeah. And only 10 people have seen it before we all have seen it now. So we are the influencers now.
Yes,
so
you are.
Yeah. All right, we're going to the last question. Time-wise, you'll be at the bar, Ton, right? For a little while. Okay, last question.
Is there a particular strand or aspect of this technology which fascinates you and you could describe in terms of the future, where this is going and what fascinates you about it?
Well, to me personally, what I think is very interesting is that you have this, how do you say, non-solid material. Like you don't need paint, you don't need concrete or stones and stuff like that. So you can add anything on top of what exists. And this combination of existing cities, walls, whatever, and then this virtual layer, I think we're just at the beginning of what's possible. And then again, we're all waiting for this lens to put in your eye. And if the lens is there, then you'll always be able to see stuff you want in AR. You can switch it off, you can switch it on. And because now you need your phone or your, you know, HoloLens or stuff like that. But when we get to the lens, then it's getting so many opportunities.
Crazy,
you know, like
yes.
yeah.
Right, Ton, thank you very much. So next week, the world premiere. Then, so from next week on, next Saturday, we can come to Eindhoven till October 1st, right?
Yes, October 1st, and then maybe the next set of projects will be
start
after
for 2019. Yeah. Can I have a huge applause for Ton, our last guest. Ton, thank you very much. Which brings us to the end of the program. I want to thank you very much for coming on this Friday night, for all the brilliant questions, the good energy. Please, if you want to see more of all these wonderful programs, go to our website, because we have loads and loads and loads more, but most of you know that already. The next Urban Stories will be after summer. There's no date set yet, but will be after summer. Let's all meet at the bar, and I just want to thank again our 3 speakers that are still here and will be at the bar for a little while. Richard, Jan and Ton, thank you very much, and good night.